I don't want to get. I mean, here's my point: is I don't want to get too, into the intricacies of New York City and state politics. But why this is important, because I want to keep this on a national level. One, it tells us a couple of things in terms of this message, is that it needs to be broadened on some level. Now, compare this. The next race that we're going to get, that is going to be a local race, more or less, but is going to have national implications. And I know that we will be talking about it on this program. And frankly, I know that most of the people who listen to this program are going to be interested in this race, is going to be Karen Lewis versus Rahm Emanuel for mayor of Chicago.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
I don't think Lewis has officially said that she's going to enter the race. I don't know that she's done
right.
it
That's
yet.
the only reason we're not talking about it yet. Is I don't think I'm. I mean, if she has said it, I haven't heard it.
But I want to remind people that Karen Lewis was the head of the Chicago Teachers Union. They had a very successful strike insofar as they were able to mobilize not just the teachers, but the broader community. The electorate in Chicago is, could be anywhere between 25 and 35% African American, and she has obviously proven, at least in the context of that strike, that she has deep relationships within the African American community, and so there's more
chance that she can break into that electorate.
Yes, and that also speaks to sort of why Elizabeth Warren would have a tougher time than, let's say, candidate Barack Obama would in defeating Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary in 2008, because
the most loyal, if you remember, a lot of African American leaders and some constituents came out for Hillary against Obama.
In fact,
African Americans,
he had very low, relatively speaking, he had very low support until he won Iowa, which
That's
people
right.
forget, that his support going into Iowa was not unlike the Teach Out Woo support, which was sort of like the, I think it's broader than this, but the so-called creative class and
That's right.
of white progressives. And it wasn't until Iowa happened, and many people speculate basically it was just because members of the black community just had a tough time wrapping their heads around the fact that he could actually win. And when he did win in Iowa, that brought a lot of people along.
I think that's part of it. I think also, look, African Americans are a very loyal Democratic constituency, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. 9 out of 10 votes, going for the Democratic Party. And obviously, from the view, I would think if I were African American, seeing the Republican Party as being an absolute disaster for my interests, and I just think there may be something to the fact that they're more sort of. I'm trying to think of what the right word is.
Well, they want to vote for somebody who's going to win in the Democratic Party.
But more amenable also to the establishment pitch. That at least that they trust the Democratic Party more, and I understand why that is. People like you and I are sort of, having worked with the Democratic Party enough times in my life before, I know not to trust them. There's that too, and I mean. I don't like making broad generalizations. I just think that, the Democratic Party, if you look at the last 50 years, has delivered so much to African Americans, even if not recently nearly as much as they should. That may breed a kind of loyalty to the establishment that some of us don't have.
Well,
I don't know.
And also, frankly, there could be more fear of a Republican Party.
That's true too, because if you and I do just fine. And a lot of people listening here, certainly we're not going to deal with the kind of racist aspects of policy if the Republicans take over. They're going to take away some of our personal rights, and we're going to be horrified because we're progressive and we care about the environment and we care about a variety of things, but it's not going to be the day-to-day kind of life.
And they're not going to be actively trying to disenfranchise us from voting, among other things. But all right, so the upshot of this is that at the end of the day, I had always perceived Teach Out's campaign to be a protest vote, one to both send a message nationally to Democrats and a message and basically to harm Cuomo's aspirations. And I think by all accounts, regardless of what you think of Teach Out and Wu, they were successful in that regard. That
Right.
there is a message that was been sent across the bow and of the Democratic Party, and it also is hopefully inspiration for more of this to take place. So let's with that said,
Yeah,
let's.
I'll just say the last thing I want to say about that very quickly is, I don't know why it's almost like we forget what successes are. Every time this has happened, that at least people say, well, if you don't win, then you haven't accomplished anything. Well, clearly that's not true. First of all, there's the fact that if you get the Working Families Party to extract concessions like you did here, there's a victory in that. This, in the end, is about legislation that helps people's lives. But also, like if you remember the case of Blanche Lincoln when she was running and got primaried from the left, and suddenly she was all about regulating derivatives. It helps policy. Well, it's one of the reasons why people disagreed with me. But in 2012, I wanted somebody early on for a couple of months to primary Obama, not necessarily for the long haul, or whatever. Because you imagine if a Bernie Sanders was to his left for about 3 or 4 months there.
Right.
I'm just saying, while it's happening, legislation tends to be a lot better and promises tend to get made. That's all I'm saying. Primaries from the left, even if they don't win, are good things, and eventually you do win some of them. And some of the best members we have, like I think of a Donna Edwards, for example, in the House, have gotten there because they've stood up to some of these sort of sellouts, and they've won. We need to do a lot more of it. The Tea Party continually does it.